And the long reach. Tatum crossover, pull-up jumper. It's good. 50 points for Jason Tatum. It's a 7-point lead. Brooks gets a running start. Bain steps back, three-pointer. With Devon. Williams, stout defense, threw it to himself. Oh, he's eviscerating the Celtics inside. Wow. But he's got to take it personal. They've got to defend on a small perimeter. Oh, Gary Payton with the flush. Goes right at Bain.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Devon Withers tonight, joined by Gary Sunnyberger, and very shortly, Isaiah Hansen, notorious New York Knicks fan. We've decided this is an emergency podcast, Gary. We have to cover, could not wait a minute longer to cover NBA free agency. How are you doing on this Friday night?
I am doing well, and I think you're bearing the lead, my friend, because you have been covering free agency. If you head over to theathleteshub.org, we have been busting some tail, Devon specifically. We've got this 2022 NBA free agency tracker going. It's got every deal that has been made this free agency deadline. Started on my birthday yesterday, which was the greatest present you can get as an NBA fan. Just constant people moving. We've got Kevin Durant requesting a trade, Kyrie Irving requesting a trade. A massive trade that happened today. I'm excited to do this with you. When Isaiah gets back here, I'm even more excited for him to just rant. We're going to clear out, give him a little ISO, some James Harden action, get him going. I'm excited.
Yeah, and like you said, there's just so much to cover, and I really, going into this, usually I have an agenda. We were talking about this before the show. Usually I'll have bullet points listed out, what points I want to make here and there. Tonight's literally just a freestyle. Let's just talk about pretty much as we can within the time that we want to go for tonight. And I guess, like you said, I mean, the biggest story, I think, I was watching ESPN and I was waiting for about an hour or so before they have this NBA free agency special that comes on. And I know Woj was going to be on it. So I'm like, all right, I'll sit. It starts in about an hour. And all of a sudden it started at like 2:49 Eastern time over here. And I'm like, it's not supposed to start until 4. And then the news comes out that Kevin Durant is requesting a trade out of Brooklyn. This comes after Kyrie Irving failed to find a sign and trade partner, had to opt into his $36 million player option for the 2022-23 season. And now all of a sudden both guys want out, and Brooklyn is just absolutely in shambles, even worse than the Knicks, it seems like at this point. What did you sort of make when you first saw the news that not just Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving sort of both want out of Brooklyn?
The news made me think two things specifically. One, the fact that these three dudes, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, only won one playoff series together. If I told you when they joined up, and specifically Kyrie and KD, but when Harden got there, if you told me that trio of players only win one playoff series in the entire time that they were together, and we know injuries happen, we know, we didn't predict what was going to happen. Of course, no one's Nostradamus, but that it's almost like such a failure on an NBA level that it hurts to talk about, because you think it could happen to your team, it could happen to my team, of course. So looking at it is like, it made me think about the amount of player movement that we're having in the last couple of years, and specifically since the decision with LeBron. Just like, it's so crazy to me that Kevin Durant, 4 years left on his contract, can just, I don't want to be here anymore, trade me. Yeah. And the Nets kind of have to do it. I'm not pro player. I'm not pro owner. I skew a little bit more pro player, but the fact that can happen is just absolutely insane, that we're in we have the ability to just or they have the ability to just go, I'm gone. I don't really like it here anymore. I don't care what my contract says. Bye. And Kyrie Irving in the same light, has a disappointing end of a season. And then it's just like, I want to go, but he's not Kevin Durant. So he's not, unless you're the Los Angeles Lakers, I don't think there's a team desperate enough to go for Kyrie Irving at this point.
Hey,
maybe, I'm sorry. I had to do it to you. I had to do it to you, but it's the truth. Like, they're looking for Kyrie, but he's not going to join with them unless they give him the mid-level exception. And, Kyrie Irving is getting owed $37 million this year. Pretty sure he doesn't want to give up on that. So I'm going to go with the fact that this is just absurd to me on an NBA level that we in 2022 are sitting here with Kevin Durant having 4 years left in his contract. And this man is like, bye. It's a failed experiment, these Nets. And Ben Simmons is still on the team.
Yeah.
It's not like
when everybody forgets
anybody.
That. Yeah. It's crazy, right? Because the Lakers fan side of me wants Kyrie Irving on this team so badly. I know we would have to move Russ to even make it happen because you can't have Kyrie Irving playing shooting guard or anything like that. It just doesn't work that way, right?
No, it's. I almost want to I almost want you to be like, yo, Kyrie on the Lakers, let's do it. Because
trust me. Secretly deep down, I want the Lakers to find a way to add Kyrie Irving to this team because I do think if Kyrie Irving is on this team, the Lakers are right back in the mix with the rest of the West. I truly, even with Austin Reeves as our fifth best player, I do think that there is a chance the Lakers are back in the mix of the Western Conference. That being said, I wrote down about 3 hot takes that I really have for this episode tonight. Oh. And one of my hot takes is, the very first one is, Kyrie Irving's going to join the Los Angeles Lakers, but it's going to happen in 2023, not 2022. I don't think he's going to find a way. All the reports say that he's going to force his way onto the Lakers. For me, what that says is even if he sits out or even if he plays for the Nets in a sort of a wasteful year, I think the Lakers are going to be aware enough to know that Kyrie's trying to force his way onto the Lakers. So they might just call this upcoming season a wash because after the season, Russell Westbrook, I should say, his player option is up, so he's gone in the wind. Kyrie Irving also would have his player option up in the wind. He's gone. Kyrie Irving could then come and join LeBron James and Anthony Davis without the price of giving up draft picks for the Los Angeles Lakers, which they desperately need because LeBron James isn't getting any younger. And I don't think the Lakers believe that giving up their draft capital this year immediately for Kyrie Irving, who he could join the Lakers and all of a sudden say, hey, I don't like it here in LA either, just like I didn't like it in Brooklyn, and maybe he wants to dip out after a year. If I'm the Lakers, I say, okay, Kyrie, we know you want to come play with us. Just wait 365 days before you come sign with us. And I guarantee they're not just going to do it on a 1-year deal. They're going to go ahead and they're going to do one of these long-term extensions. That's what I truly believe. But I don't think it's going to happen this year. I gotta say, Devon. Yeah.
Speaking of draft capital, I am about to introduce a man who I would trade 3 protected first-round picks. I would do the 11th pick to make sure that I had the chance of landing this man. I'm going to add him right now. My friend Isaiah Hansen. Welcome.
Yes.
Holding that Yankees hat proud because that's the only New York sports team he can. At this point, even the Nets, I don't think you can go far wearing one of them hats around there. How you doing, Isaiah? How's the free agency period been treating you?
Treating me?
Yeah, treating you.
Great. It's been fun. It's been fun to watch, and it's been fun to try and put my thoughts together and exactly how I feel about it, because it's like I'm emotionally unstable right now because on one end, it's a lot of stuff going on, and it's really exciting. On one end, I'm like that jealous ex-boyfriend that's just like trying to figure out like, yo, so what's going on with my Knicks? So yeah, this is a statement and also covering up, unlike some people who got haircuts. I need one myself. But yes, this is it. I cannot wear a Knicks hat, unfortunately, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, but you could be wearing a Jalen Brunson jersey.
Ooh.
I know you heard me.
Silence.
I know
I
you
love
heard
the
me.
silence.
I-
How's it feel to pay $100 million 4 years to a guy who's never made an All-Star team?
oh, we're gonna get right into it, huh?
I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm
can.
egging you on. I'm over
Okay.
here lighting fire. I'm
Listen.
lighter fluid, bro.
After seeing the Anthony Simmons signing from the Portland Trail Blazers, I felt a little bit better. Okay. But then
That's
I
funny.
looked
I
at the
like that.
roster as
That's
it's
a good.
constructed
That's a
right
good
now.
thought. I like that.
Yeah. So I looked at the team as it is right now. My thing is, if getting Jalen Brunson leads to the exit of one man, I really put my Knick fan status in serious question at some point, because I think this would be the final nail in the coffin. I can officially take no more. Like the Jets, the Jets, for example, I used to really follow football like that. They just killed me over the years, and I fell off of football. I will never fall off the NBA, but the Knicks, I may have to boycott the team until until James Dolan sells the team. I got to, because if RJ Barrett leaves because of Jalen Brunson, because look, let me tell you something. Leon Rose is the greatest agent in NBA history. I'll tell you what. Rick Brunson is one of the greatest fathers in the league. Okay, like this to me seems like a really big gift to his former client. That's what it feels like. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, because how you just said it. He never made an All-Star game. He had a pretty good playoff run as the second option. Like the argument you made against Jaylen Brown, I could make against Jalen Brunson 1,000 times over. And the thing is, it's not even getting like, it's how we got Jalen Brunson that's embarrassing. You traded like 10 teams. I mean, 10 teams. You might as well traded 10 teams. 10 players. You laid out the red carpet as if you were getting LeBron James or Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant. Maybe we'll get Kevin Durant. I don't know. Let's do that. Probably not. It's
haven't you been through this already? Trying to get Kevin
you
Durant,
sound broken.
Kyrie,
You sound hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jalen Brunson, and then like we get the Hartenstein signing, right? But I saw one post.
Okay, I wanted to bring that up too, because that I think is one of the more underrated signings in this free agency.
It is
very good. He's probably one of the better backup centers in the league. He's on the Clippers, and I don't know what he averages right now. I don't have the things, but every time I watch the Clippers, I go like that guy. He does a lot on the court that you're thinking, like, he does the smart play. He sets good screens. He gets rebounds. He has a little touch under the basket. He can hit that little pop shot. Like he's a decent player. I think you guys got him for a steal too. But yeah, I don't think this. I have Nick's therapy session down here for a reason, but I do really think that it's not as bad as you think, my man. It's not as bad as you think.
Sorry, Isaiah. I was just going to say, when we were all talking in our group chat last night, I just want it to be known, I prefer Jalen Brunson over Colin Sexton. I don't know where the slander of Jalen Brunson came from. I'm actually okay with the Jalen Brunson signing over Colin Sexton. When we talked about this last night, and I said whatever team doesn't get Jalen Brunson is going after Colin Sexton, and you seem to be okay with the injured Colin Sexton over Jalen Brunson, I was shocked. I was baffled. I was bamboozled.
I think it really comes down to, what are you paying Colin Sexton versus what are you paying a Jalen Brunson? Colin Sexton's probably getting 13, 14 million a year.
Last I heard, he's trying to command at least 18 to 20 in free agency.
I think I was just rooting against the Knicks at this point with the Jalen Brunson signing. And it's not even really about Jalen Brunson. Like, I feel bad for coming at him and his father good God. Like, I'm sorry. It's not about them. It's not about Hartenstein. It's about how the Knicks went about getting these guys. We operate like a small market team. Like, this should not be the case. We are New York. This is the biggest. Like, we had 2 stars that wanted to come to New York, and they went to the Brooklyn Nets for a reason. In a way, in hindsight, I'm kind of glad they did. But nevertheless, like, it's just how we operate is unfortunate, and it's embarrassing. And shout out to AJ. So,
yeah, no, I'm sad for you, man, because I know that you're really looking forward to the next season here coming up in the future, and of course for the rest of your life. But you braced 2 fingers at me in protest.
One thing. There's 2 things that could save this free agency for me, and I will not complain, and I will jump back on my Knicks bandwagon. Okay, One of them was mentioned earlier by Devon in the chat. It's not about what it'll do for us on a winnings perspective, but it's about righting a wrong, how they treated Carmelo Anthony on his way out. You need to bring that man back and put him on a farewell tour, give him the respect he deserves. That's number one. And two, you sign RJ Barrett to an extension. I will not accept no RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson on the team. I will not. I just won't.
Well, you hear to hear first. If Isaiah doesn't get RJ Barrett extension, he might light Madison Square Garden on fire.
It would kill the rat infestation that's going on in there. So,
Hey.
Isaiah, because you seemed pretty pleased, at least, with the Mitchell Robinson re-signing. I mean, 4 years, $60 million. Sort of talk us through that, getting paid $15 million a year to play down low.
This is what I'm like. This is a win for me because when the Knicks didn't trade Mitchell Robinson, my thing was never about him, the talent. It was about how you let a guy like that walk after developing for so long. You're just going to let him walk. You're not going to trade him. He wasn't doing anything for us contending-wise. 4 years, $60 million. You get rid of Nerlens Noel. You get Mitchell Robinson back. And we got Isaiah Hartenstein, as you mentioned. We still got Jericho Sims. I like the center spot for now. 5 for 60 is not bad in today's NBA. At best, maybe Mitchell Robinson stays the same and you have a decent center. But he's also been adding muscle and been working on his jump shot. Then again, I've been hearing that for 2 years, but hopefully it comes eventually. And we got like the next version of Bam Adebayo. I always joke around and say that, but I thought it was good just because, okay, you didn't trade him, but you kept him. Okay, like this is what a victory is being a Knicks fan, and it's sad.
Got to win the little battles, my guy. Got to win the little battles.
Would you rather
win
have
a war with the big fights, but you win the little battles, you win the heart of the team. You get a culture, you build it around a guys, a couple of dudes. Then that's how the Nets did it. And I'm saying that you should ever be like the Nets considering the last couple of days, but that's how they did it.
I do appreciate the Nets.
Build a culture.
Would you rather have Mitchell Robinson knowing what you know, or would you rather have just kept that draft pick and picked Jalen Durant?
I would have rather kept Jalen Durant for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's no way I could like justify those moves at all. Like, yeah, you got your guy with Jalen Brunson, but for me, that was it's just you moved an entire mountain. They literally Leon Rose literally went to Mount Everest, picked it up, and moved it over 3 inches just to get Jalen Brunson. Like, I understand if we were getting like a game changer, but it's just the fact that we're operating this way. I mean, hey, we have him now, so we got to live with it. And I mean, Jalen Brunson's not a bad player. I hope he could really make me eat my words. And like mid-season, I'll just be chanting, "Let's go Knicks," and I'll just be that toxic Knicks fan that everybody misses. But for now, I just can't. I'm disgruntled. I'm in a complicated relationship. I feel my Knicks status is in big question. Like it's in big question. Like right now.
I think you forget that Jalen Brunson did have. He was the second or third best player on a team that was in the Western Conference Finals. I know a lot of that was Luka Doncic, but pump the brakes on the notes, my guy. I think you're okay. I think
listen. I had a pretty good
win the title, but we could talk about this again, but like we talked about it later or earlier in the season. You hate middling. You'd rather be bad or be great.
Simple. That's it. Like, what are we doing here? Like, at least let's aim for next season. You got a pretty good, like, what's a 7'3" guy? I can't even pronounce his name, but
Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, let's do something. Get me excited for something. And Zion Williamson just signed a 5-year deal. I would have even taken Zion Williamson, knowing what I know now, just because I need something to get up out of bed for. Like, Carmelo Anthony would be like something to hold me over for a season. I'll take it.
Yeah, and I mean that's a good segue too. So here's just the list of names of individuals that signed max extensions. It's Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, Nikola Jokic, Devin Booker, John Morant, Karl Anthony Towns, and Zion Williamson. I don't think I'm missing anyone, but that's a very lucrative list of people. Yes. I mean, Nikola Jokic became the first ever $250 million player, whatever it was I saw on Twitter. Let me ask you guys this. So I'll run through the list one more time. Zach LaVine with Chicago, Bradley Beal with Washington, Nikola Jokic with Denver, Devin Booker with Phoenix, John Morant with Memphis, Karl Anthony Towns with Minnesota, Zion Williamson with New Orleans. I guess my question is, and we haven't prepped this at all, so this is just whatever you feel, gut instinct. which of these players has the best chance of leading their team to an NBA Finals appearance this season? Chicago, Washington, Denver, Phoenix, Memphis, Minnesota, New Orleans. Which one has the best shot? I mean, there's some interesting names in there.
I mean, I think the easy one, of course, is to go with Jokic.
Okay.
I think, like, of course, I would love to be like, oh, it's going to be Zion. I think he's going to lead the Pelicans to a Western Conference Finals. I did say that in a podcast a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Hold me to that. I still am, digesting that take. But the Isaiah's pick for, I think you picked him for MVP this year. Did you? Am I correct?
For Jokic, not early. Oh, you mean this upcoming year?
This upcoming, yeah. For we did like.
Well, I'm more on the
I think,
team for the maybe a championship, but I mean I would.
okay, well, whatever it was, I do think that Jokic is probably the answer here. Yeah. He's getting Murray, and hopefully Michael Porter Jr. comes back. I think Jokic is probably, two-time MVP. He's getting his two best players back. They are in a Western Conference that, while people would argue has gotten better, I think it's pretty much stayed par for the course, at least for now. We got to see where Kevin Durant lands. We got to see where, the pieces fall this offseason. If Kevin Durant goes to Phoenix, we have a lot to talk about. We're getting trade stuff later, but my point being, to answer your question, I think it's Jokic. It's got to be.
You're on the same pages?
Yes, but I want to make an argument for somebody else.
Okay.
Go for it.
I think you'll appreciate this. Look, Jokic is the one. That's number one. Okay, but I think one that could be like, this could be 1B is Zach LaVine. But not because of Zach LaVine himself. It's just because of what the Bulls secured. Devon, this is more of a credit to you. You talked about you picked up the bus. You were the first one to start driving it, and I think you lock in Zach LaVine and you lock in your ability to really be contenders, because we didn't really get to see the Bulls at full strength yet. So hopefully DeMar DeRozan could pick up where he left off, and Lonzo could stay healthy for once. And the Bulls did make another addition, right? I believe they had it. Was it Drummond?
Yeah, Drummond.
Yes,
Yeah,
they got
Drummond
Drummond for cheap too.
That's the Bulls are really scary too. Like, I got to really think about them as Eastern Conference like contenders, but I think you got to put them right there. And if you lost Zach LaVine, they're still there, but it's just not quite as a lock in my opinion. But with Zach LaVine, that really locks their potential in my opinion.
Yeah, they picked up Tony Bradley. They retained Tony Bradley. Derrick Jones Jr., favorite of mine, of course, former Miami player. 2 years, $6.6 million. He's been hurt a lot, so the lower numbers. It's pretty solid for a guy who can give you some good defense. Of course, offensively he's a little limited, but I think you make a great point. The Chicago Bulls kind of making some underrated moves at the deadline, especially that Drummond deal. My goodness, what a steal! 2 years, $6.6 million for probably the best rebounder in the NBA per 36. Yeah. That's really good.
Off the bench.
Backing up Jokic. Backing up Vucevic. Got my bitches mixed up.
I mean, the Bulls, watch out. Yeah, watch out.
So I'll say this, one that I think could be overlooked, and I'm going to sort of contradict myself, because one of my hot takes is that I believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves certainly overpaid for Rudy Gobert. I think it was Gary that was a little bit more in favor of the fact that the Timberwolves got Gobert, but I think if things work out, Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns down low, Anthony Edwards still on the team, D'Angelo Russell going into a contract year, doesn't sound like they're going to trade D'Angelo Russell. Minnesota, if they can repair the pieces that they lost in that trade, I think they're sort of catapulting themselves into a win now mode kind of team, because they lost all of that draft capital, trading away 4 first-round picks. So I'd like to see Minnesota as a contender in the West if possible, but I just don't know how they're going to replace all that depth when, Gobert doesn't average more than 15 points a game. He's just more of a rebound guy that can bring in 15 rebounds just as easily as 15 points.
I would
love
have
somebody passing to him though this time. So
yes, Anthony Edwards, my guy. D'Angelo Russell, improved passer. Here's what I'm thinking, right? Of course, the Timberwolves overpaid for Rudy Gobert. If they got 4 unprotected first round picks for Rudy Gobert.
So bad.
4 unprotected, not a top 3, not a top 5, top nothing, unprotected, and they got their draft pick that they selected this year. That's 5 unprotected first-round picks. Of course, you don't get the value of getting to pick who you choose with the one that you just got back, but still, I think the thing we're overlooking here, though, Rudy Gobert was asked to be a second option on that Jazz team. I'm not saying he's going to be like an all-star. I mean, he might be just because of how good on defense he is. But the fact that you're going to now have him as the 4th, 5th option maybe on your offense while allowing him to play the defense that he wants to, because let's be honest, Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards aren't world beaters on defense, but you get a guy like Rudy Gobert to dominate that paint. You get some, I mean, the Timberwolves have tons of length. They're not hurting in that department. You get a guy that can lock down the paint like Rudy Gobert. We're looking at a Timberwolves team that we might see top 5, top 4 seed in this West. I'm not saying they're going to make some noise in the playoffs, maybe a second round if they're lucky, but I really like this year for the Minnesota Timberwolves. In the future, gotta help yourself. You're paying Rudy Gobert $50 million freaking dollars a year. At how old? 33 years old in a league where centers don't age well. Ooh, that's a tough look. But for this year, I like this.
It has to be this year because you have D'Angelo Russell on a contract year. So if you're not planning on, they were talking about trading Russell at one point in time, but then instead decided to trade for Gobert. So you can't pay Russell after this year. There's just no cap space whatsoever to pay him. And I mean, you make a good point, Gary, where, I mean, he's going from the second option to realistically probably the 4th option behind Cat, then Anthony Edwards, then D'Angelo Russell. Maybe he's the 3rd option in front of D'Angelo Russell if he's lucky. But on a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's either going to work really well or not at all. And I just don't know which one it's going to be.
I will say, my roommate made a point that I think is hilarious, is that you have Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert both making $200 million a year. And they are a year in their contract total. And they're not even the alpha on their team. Anthony Edwards is that team. Now, Karl Anthony Towns might be the more talented player today, like as of right now, July 1st, 2022. But give it 2 years when both of those guys will still be on the team. They'll still be under contract unless Rudy Gobert, thinks he's Kevin Durant and requests a trade. I do think that it's wild to me to see that Anthony Edwards is possibly the best player on this team in the future, and he's not even being close to probably get what these guys are getting right now.
One thing I gotta say though, I agree with both of you guys. Like, it was an overpayment, it was just like Gary said, but like, this is what a small market team is supposed to do. Okay, you need to roll the dice every once in a while. You need to lock in somebody like Rudy Gobert because you don't have free agents lining up at the door. Now one thing I've always said, like last season, I would say a lot. I said maybe one thing being worse than a Knicks fan is being a Timberwolves fan, because they would just tease you so much. You had this really good core, and they just never really did anything to improve. But finally, they make a big move. They try to shake things up, and they lock up Karl Anthony Towns. Again, like Gary said, God help them for the future. But you got to roll the dice every now and then. You're not always going to have a core like this. You need to take a chance. And they also signed Kyle Anderson, by the way, who I think is a pretty decent player coming off the bench or maybe playing at the 3 as a starter. They do have some depth to replace, but their core looks really good right now. Are they going to win a championship? No. But are they going to win now? Are they rolling the dice? Are they taking a shot at it? Do they have a chance if injuries happen? Maybe.
You got it. Like, anytime you got a guy like Anthony Edwards who projects to be a top 10 player in the NBA, if the pieces fall and the dominoes are correct, you have to show him really early in the start, hey, we're dedicated to winning. You're not going to be able to go. I mean, like, we're going to keep bringing him up. I hate to be like the Knicks and show RJ Barrett the guys that we signed in free agency, and then he looks over a couple thousand miles away and sees Minnesota getting Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards, and he's like, he looks behind him and he sees Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, and he's
Well, he
like,
has to look behind him, then look down because he's like 6 foot. So you got to look. Like, you
yeah,
can't do-
he's looking around and he's like, where is where?
The slander.
What
The
is-
slander.
What do they got? And what do I got? And, so my main thing here is that I think it's funny that Anthony Edwards has that that pull in the league, but also at the same time, it's important to keep him, happy. Show him, hey, we are built around you. We're trying to make you better. You're the guy. And I think the coaching staff there has done a pretty good job of giving him the reins when he during the regular season and kind of reining him in. There's a couple of games there where he wasn't shooting too hot, and you saw them give the ball to somebody else. They're still making him earn his chops as a rookie, as a young guy in the NBA. But I still think that this is how you keep a young superstar and get them to sign that extension.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, so sort of transitioning into, I know Gary's not going to like this statement that I'm about to make, but transitioning into a team that I think severely overpaid for a player into a team that I feel like severely underpaid for a player. I thought the Boston Celtics fleeced the Indiana Pacers with that Malcolm Brogdon trade. I see Gary on social media left and right claiming that he's going to be just injury prone, isn't going to play a full season.
I was throwing hot takes.
Hold your tongues, Gary. Just let's hear it. Let's hear the concerns.
I'm going to bring up his stats right now because I don't have them offhand, but here I have them probably in my history. Malcolm Brogdon does not play basketball games. I think that's as much as I can say. He played like 30 games last season.
Okay, played 36 and
36 games last season, 56 the year before, 54 the year before that, 64 for the last year in Milwaukee. He played 48 in the 2017 season. He's never played a full season of his career, and he hasn't played over 56 games in 3 years. He's always injured, and I'm not saying that he's not a great player because on paper, the Celtics are the favorites in the East right now with all the talent they have right sitting in their laps. They just trade for Malcolm Brogdon. They don't even have to give up really anybody who played in the finals. They gave up Aaron Nesmith, who only saw any time because they had some fouling issues with Marcus Smart. The only reason they played Tice was because they were worried about Golden State possibly being able to kill them small, but when they realized it wasn't even a big deal, they just took that man right out of the game. So I really do think that this is a great move for the Celtics if Malcolm Brogdon wasn't made of glass. And it's hard to be as harsh like that but it is true. He has trouble staying on the court. And I worry that you as a team put all your chips into, he makes a lot of money basket. Mm-hmm. And, you're having to sit here and think to yourself, are we better? Yes. But the injury bug is real. And I do think that if the cards don't fall perfect for the Celtics team like they did this year, they didn't really have any serious injuries this year to starters other than Robert Williams, who played through them and honestly was one of their better players in the finals and in the entire playoffs. So, I am concerned about injuries as much as anybody should be, because the amount of times we see NBA stars have amazing careers, they're amazing players, and then Zaza Pachulia steps on Kawhi's leg, and then we don't see him for 3 years, and now we don't see him for a 4th year because he's sitting in Los Angeles resting his legs, doesn't want to play for the Clippers. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm like we said earlier, I'm not Nostradamus, I'm not no fortune teller, but it concerns me.
So, Isaiah, you want first crack at it?
I don't got much. I mean, it's valid in what you're saying, like about the injury history, but in a way, you got to be like, okay, but he's due for a healthy season, right? And when you look at it, you just said it, like they didn't really give up that much. Aaron Nesmith is a decent young player, but who knows what he's going to come. And then the rest, I don't really see anything big other than that first round pick. That's probably going to be a number 25 or 27 pick anyway. So you roll the dice. I mean, you do take the money on, but you needed a point guard. You got a point guard. You just need him for the playoffs. You don't even really need him for the regular season. Just save him for the playoffs. Let him be like Andre Iguodala. Like, just have him ready for that time, and then we'll run with it. So that's all. So you're right, But damn, they didn't give up much. Come on, man.
No, you're right. And it does. They did what I wanted them to do. They went and they got a point guard who can distribute, who can handle the ball, who can play, who can call plays, run the offense. Like, they got the guy. I'm not saying Malcolm Brogdon isn't the guy that they needed.
Yeah.
But he needs to stay healthy. He doesn't do that. It's like anytime somebody says Anthony Davis when he's healthy, it's just hilarious.
You see how he took that?
Like I said, I'm fire started, baby. We know what's going on.
I gotta say, I agree.
So here's what I will say. As a Lakers fan, this pains me to say it. I thought the Boston Celtics were going to win that series against the Golden State Warriors, but I said two things after that NBA Finals. I said, number one, the Boston Celtics need a point guard. They just needed a point guard that was going to distribute because I didn't feel like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown should be the ones deferring the basketball. Those are both score-first players. So that was number one. They needed a point guard. Number two, they needed a player who was not going to turn the ball over as much as this team did. Jason Tatum was the first player in NBA history with over 100 turnovers in the playoffs. It's absolutely absurd. I saw players in the Boston Celtics shrink and shrivel and break apart in the bright moments. So here's what I will say about Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon's not even going to start for this Boston Celtics team, I don't think. I think they're going to keep the same starting five. I would put Marcus Smart back out there. I'd put Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum both back out there. You're not going to put Al Horford or Robert Williams to the bench because you still need that size. So Malcolm Brogdon doesn't even fit in the starting five. That being said, the last hot take that I really have, unless something comes to mind, my scheduled hot take, the Boston Celtics have the most depth of any team in the NBA. Any team. Look at their five off of the bench. Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams, Derek White. They're going to have Malcolm Brogdon now. And then once he clears waivers and officially signs with the Celtics, Danilo Gallinari is also going to be coming off of the bench for the Boston Celtics. Name me one team that has five bench players to that caliber. I can't find it. And so all of a sudden we're talking about injury history and Malcolm Brogdon, who over the last two seasons has been forced to play 33 to 35 minutes a game, doesn't need to play that many minutes. Like Isaiah said, save him for the playoffs. Show me 25 minutes. Show me 30 minutes maybe once or twice a week. I 100% think, like Gary said, if he stays healthy, this is going to be the difference maker in what gets the Boston Celtics back to the NBA Finals, in my opinion.
Four of those guys that you mentioned for their bench would start on the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's all I'm
100%,
saying.
100%. Everyone except
now
for
that I'm thinking about
yeah.
it, now that they got Chet, and then they got who else? Shea and Giddy. But I'm joking. But true, they're freaking loaded. It's kind of stupid. And for a team that I criticized having no depth in the NBA Finals when it came to players that actually showed up at least, Peyton Pritchard was a nothing in the NBA Finals. Derek White kind of looked like a deer in the headlights at times. And Grant Williams kind of had a great Eastern Conference Finals, but fell off a little bit in the finals there. They can get a guy on that bench like Malcolm Brogdon, who they just did get, to run that offense off the bench. Those are
It's scary.
Hold on. I got to put this up.
Oh, goodness.
Thanks, Dad.
For a second, Gary, I saw that comment in the Facebook, and I was like, I wasn't sure if you were commenting something.
That would be something very vain of me and something I would do. I'd comment on my own post on my fake Facebook. You look great, my man. Thanks, Dad. I get it from you.
When I went on my Brunson rant, that's why I said Rick Brunson was the best father in the NBA, Gary.
Because my dad's the best dad ever.
There you go.
Like every Instagram post on Father's Day, like, no, my dad's the best. You don't understand.
Exactly.
I mean, Gary, let's focus on you for a second because, I mean, you're Miami Heat. I said this in the chat. I've been linked to everybody and anybody when it comes. Literally every single Twitter post that I see has Miami Heat have expressed interest in. Miami Heat maybe lurking. Miami Heat this, Miami Heat that. And I mean, one player that I want to get your opinion on. I mean, we all knew PJ Tucker was going to get an offer from the Philadelphia 76ers. What kind of difference do you think that's going to be? Because he's getting paid on a 3-year deal by the 76ers. How does the loss of that sort of affect the Heat chances going into next year?
Well, I mean, honestly, we lose one of our better perimeter defenders. Of course, you have Bam and Jimmy, but PJ's right there. You lose a guy who shot for the first half of the NBA season, had the greatest 3-point shooting season in the league. He was 48% from three at the All-Star break. He had a little bit of a down slump afterwards, but PJ Tucker was the reason that the Miami Heat were the number one 3-point shooting team in the league last year. And I don't think it's any secret that losing him is a big shot. Now, I will say I would not be happy to pay him his $11 million when he's, however, 39 years old at the end, maybe 40 at the end of this contract. He's old. He's not like a young guy. Maybe him falling off a little bit at the end of the season gave the Heat that, like, that tell, like, hey, okay, this guy's really good. He's a smart player. I don't know if you've ever seen him play live, but my roommate considers him the slowest player he's ever seen on an NBA court. Not that doesn't mean that he's an amazing position on defense, because he's the smartest defender on the court every time he's on the court. He just he lacks the athletic ability at this age to do what he used to do. But I do think that losing him hurts. Now, we could probably fill that role. I know there's rumors that Jay Crowder is expected to at least talk with the Miami Heat to re-sign there. He was a part of our team when we went on our finals run in the bubble, and he really did shoot the heck out of the ball and get us to a spot where we could contend against those Lakers with Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So I'm worried about his absence, but I do think it makes a lot of sense for the Sixers. He's a guy who's already played off of James Harden for a good portion of his career, a guy that you can put next to Joel Embiid, and he's going to be able to play that sort of defense that you need when you're going up against a dominant big man in the post, like the Sixers are building for with Giannis. When you have Jokic on the other side of the ball, you got a lot of these bigger dudes that are coming into the NBA with ball handling skills, and PJ Tucker can hold his own in the post, but he can also dominate down low in those like scrappy areas where you need to poke the ball out of the big man's hand when you double team. He's got all the intangibles to be a great pairing with Joel Embiid, great pairing with James Harden. We know that, but man, does it suck to lose probably, and it's sad to say, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson on your team, the most reliable 3-point shooter that you have. It's sad. I mean, he's not taking 33s a game like Steph Curry, but when he takes 5 and he makes 3 of them, you'll take that every single day of the week. And I'm going to miss him. He was a great player. He still is. I act like he's dead. He's just on another team. But I'm going to miss him. He was awesome.
Yeah, and one player that I really wanted, because I saw the Lakers were sort of working around this certain player in free agency, but he re-signed with the Miami Heat, was your boy Victor Oladipo coming back on a 1-year deal over to the Miami Heat. So I think, with him being healthy going into next season, we're probably seeing an expanded role for him too, right?
Yeah, and you saw it in the playoffs a lot. When the offense, where I criticized the Heat before, their offense seems to just be dribble, handoff, dribble, give it to Tyler Hero or Jimmy Butler, and God help us. But the amount of times you saw Victor play great defense, get back on offense, make the smart play, and he's really the only guy on that Heat bench that has the green light of shoot it just because you can. I mean, Tyler Hero, of course, he will probably be starting next year, all things considered, with his 6th Man of the Year campaign and win, and then just him, he's expressed to the media he wants to start next year. Wouldn't be surprised if Victor Oladipo leads that bench. And before we do get into it, Kevin Durant, rumors to the Miami Heat. I would give up so much. I would give up my whole life for Kevin Durant to be on the Miami Heat, but I'm sorry, but I don't think it's happening.
No,
I don't
not when
think the
you tell
Nets are
me.
taking Tyler Hero and
No.
the crapshoot of players that we have. I don't think it's happening. I don't care what the Stephen A. Smiths and NBA Central Twitter accounts say.
Yeah.
It's not happening, guys. And if it does, I'll cut off my finger. But it's not. It's not gonna happen.
You better clip that. You better clip that if it ever
Yeah.
happens.
I'm losing this one right here. If Kevin
That's
Durant,
what we want.
mark my words. Mark my words. If Kevin Durant lands on the Miami Heat. If I look at my phone in the next 20 minutes. Oh no, I thought that was
We'll do it live
a
for the show.
notification
Yeah.
from Woj. It was just our channel. If something happens and Kevin Durant is on the Heat and we don't have to give up Jimmy Butler, and we've talked about it in the chats before, the Miami Heat cannot trade Bam Adebayo while Ben Simmons is still on the roster. You cannot have two rookie max guys on the same roster at the same time unless you have their bird rights, which if you trade for Ben Simmons without being the original team you trade for, you're not going to be able to get his bird rights. So you can't put Bam Adebayo in the trade. It has to be Jimmy Butler or Tyler Hero. And I'm not giving up Jimmy. Why would I do that? He's the third best player in Miami Heat history. I'm not doing that.
If you really had to though, if the Miami Heat offered Tyler Hero, Max Strus, Jimmy Butler, and 3 first-round picks for Kevin Durant, would you do that? It's Kevin Durant.
It's my heart, Devon. It's my soul. In this closet right here is a Miami Jimmy Butler jersey. Yeah. It would sting. I would probably be very sad. I might even make an Instagram post.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Big stuff. Yes, Devin. Yeah. Yes, I would do it.
You know what's interesting too is I mean, we were talking about this before. I mean, rumors and reports on Twitter, I mean, take them with more than a grain of salt. But did you guys see the latest one where it was Kevin Durant didn't want to go to the Miami Heat unless he had the opportunity to play with Butler, Adebayo, and Kyle Lowry? He was like, I don't want any of those 3 players to come back in the return package. And I'm sort of sitting there, I'm like, this is a man who has 4 years left on his contract and no player option. And somehow he's dictating who's like allowed in trade packages. Like if I were them, I would send them to like Sacramento or send them to somewhere where nobody wants to play and let it be. You know what I mean? I just don't understand it.
If you're I mean, I get it from you can't just deal the dude to like Utah and be like, bye, because then no one's ever going to want to sign with you again. Because if you deal player, I mean, that's the problem the Celtics had recently, what they did with Isaiah Thomas. And then you hear Anthony Davis's uncle or brother or whoever, was it his dad? I don't know. It was some family relative of his went on some sort of podcast and said, my son will never sign with the Celtics because of what they did to Isaiah Thomas. And, agents and players remember these things.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant, yes, it's wild that a guy 4 years into his deal or 4 years left on his deal is able to just be like, I went out and send me only to these 3 places. And you're
not taking these guys back either.
And you can't include
teams that can't offer anything.
It's like the opposite of the Carmelo Anthony Knicks trade from the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony was like, I don't care. Just give up anyone. Put me in New York. I don't even care.
Yeah.
And then they wound up sending over 3 of their best players. And, it
was it 3? I think it was like 5.
Yeah, it was like Gallinari as a young kid. It was a couple other people. I'm too old. I don't remember. I'm too young. I don't remember that stuff. I was like 11.
I think, it was a bunch of nobodies, but it was like a nice nucleus that we had going on. We were doing really well before that trade. I remember because I was like, okay. Yeah. And then things kind of went south a little bit. I mean, they were okay. But
I'm like, I don't think you, I wouldn't want to. If I'm Kevin Durant, of course you want to play with the 3 better players on the Heat when you get there, but that's not how the world works. You don't just get to dictate exactly. Yeah, I would love a trade to the Nuggets for Kevin Durant, and you can't give up Jokic, Murray, or Michael Porter Jr. Make it happen. What? Stop. Get out of here. Go home.
And not only that, the
podcast or something.
Like the Nets would essentially be like closing their chances too in the East. Like if you were to deal Durant like without getting any of those like the big 3 back, I mean, that's what would happen. But I mean, Gary, like if you could keep those guys though, would you write a blank check that excludes Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and Kyle Lowry. In other words, would you be willing to give up everybody else, your depth, your picks?
They don't have anybody.
Yeah, we
got
got
nobody.
Matt
No, Tyler Hill's good.
Tyler Hero, Max Strus,
Oladipo,
Max
Jurgen.
Strus. Max Strus is the second name we're thinking of when it comes to a trade package for Kevin Durant, one of the
No, he
greatest
makes great points. I agree.
players,
It's ridiculous.
which we all agreed on a few episodes ago. One of the 15 greatest players in NBA history. We're debating Steph
Basketball is
Curry.
weird, and you have Pat Riley. You understand? Pat Riley is one person that'll be able to
They
figure
might
out.
have to trade Pat Riley. That might be the only way they get Kevin Durant.
I think he would accept that.
Yo, if we have to include Eric Spoelstra in the deal, I'm out. I'm not doing it.
That's
It's
it.
not happening.
No, that won't work. That's it. Like,
Oh, we'll give up DJ Khaled. You can have DJ Khaled. You can take him. For some reason, I don't know why, but Meek Mill's always a sideline at Heat games, even though he's from Philly. Take him too. Go for it. Have fun.
Gary needs to trade his fanship too. He has to become a Brooklyn Nets fan.
Go for it. Trade him. He'll go be a Nets fan. He'll cry a lot.
He has no choice.
Fellas, I want to brush over. This isn't as big of a signing, but I was told by my producers that that this individual I'm about to mention is not very well perceived. His deal that he got in free agency isn't very well perceived by somebody in this call. So I just want to throw out this name and see what your guys' thoughts are. Portland decided to re-sign Yusuf Nurkic to a 4-year deal. I'm just mentioning it. Gary, I don't know. Let's start with you.
Yeah.
What do you think about Yusuf Nurkic and his big-time 4-year extension to stay with the Portland Trailblazers? Potentially, I mean, Simmons got $100 million, and Dame is still looking for a number 2 option. I mean, what do you sort of make of everything?
So by the end of his 4-year deal, Yusuf Nurkic will be 32 years old. Sorry. Not that he is a bad player. I would like to put that out there that Yusuf Nurkic is not a bad player. But when you are trying to win a championship with Damian Lillard, if that's the goal here, if the goal is to get enough players to build around Dame for that one last shot, I'm not saying he's going to do it, but like we got to give our superstar the pieces around him. What you do not want is a guy that in the last 3 seasons has played 56 games last year, 37 games the year before, and 8 games in 2019. He averages 15 and 11 and plays pretty decent defense, but I think at the price that you're paying him, look at what the Bulls got for Andre Drummond. 2 years, $6 million, and you're over here paying Yusuf Nurkic, who is a better player, but how much better of a player is Yusuf Nurkic than Andre Drummond right now? I would go on a limb and say it's pretty close. I'm giving the edge to Nurkic, but I'm not giving the financial edge as much as the Portland Trailblazers decided to give him. I just worry about the fact that Damian Lillard's going to finish his career and he's going to look back and think to himself, well, what did the Portland Trailblazers do for me? And then there's going to be nothing. He's going to have nothing to say. It's sad. It really is that a guy like Damian Lillard is going to end his career the way that it is. And I think a lot of it has to do with bad front office decisions. One of those being giving Yusuf Nurkic $70 million over 4 years. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but like from a time put in perspective, Yusuf Nurkic probably deserves $70 million specifically for what he did in the 2019 playoffs or 2020 playoffs. I don't remember which one it was, where he basically was hurt and then decided I'm still playing. Yeah, he might have been just a body out there on the court, but he's the best defensive center they've had in Damian Lillard's entire career in Portland, and that's not a good thing. So it worries me that they're wasting his career when you can make these little better moves for a lot cheaper with a lot less contract incentive than 4 years, $70 million. And I'm going to bring it up again. The fact that the Bulls got Andre Drummond for 2 years, $6 million is insane to me. That we're sitting here and talking about Nurkic. I can't speak. I'm so mad. For Damian Lillard's sake, for sure. But yeah, that's how I feel about the whole situation.
And
Isaiah, do you have any opinions on Damian Lillard's still teammate, but should he be?
Well, look, I mean, I wrote the 10 bold predictions for NBA like a year earlier, and I believe my annual salary was like on point with what he got. So I expected this, okay?
Mhm.
Now, because like you said, he's been there for a while, and when healthy, he's a pretty good center. He's one of the better centers in the league, actually, in my opinion.
Okay.
But there's no championship within proximity for Damian Lillard on the Trailblazers. There's not a single move the Blazers could have made unless they could have traded for maybe Durant or, something like extraordinary. But as far as free agency goes, there's literally nothing that they could do to deliver this man a championship within the next 2 or 3 years. So Damian Lillard needs to go. I think this Nurkic deal, maybe you're just setting up your supplemental pieces and you want to just have like something that I don't know, but Damian Lillard needs to go. That's all I got to say. And I'm not mad at them for signing Nurkic. I mean, yeah, they could have gone and get like Andre Drummond or little small moves, but there's no championship within sight. And when it comes to Damian Lillard, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for him to be in a contending spot, not just to get to the playoffs. He's been there, done that. If you could not do it with CJ McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, healthy Nurkic, you had some pieces there and you just couldn't get it done. Dame needs to go somewhere else. I understand he's loyal and all that stuff, and it's respectable, but it's frustrating for the guy because, we watch this guy. He's like an all-time great talent, and I'm not going to lie. Like, I see a lot of rankings and a lot of all-time rankings, and people put, like, Russell Westbrook over Damian Lillard, and, and it shouldn't be that way. Damian Lillard should be one of the best point guards of this generation, and he just won't get that kind of admiration without being in the championship mix.
You bring up a great point with Damian Lillard leaving. If Damian Lillard leaves, you are now paying Yusuf Nurkic how much money to be on a team that isn't trying to win? It just doesn't make sense to me from a long-term standpoint or a short-term standpoint. I'm not saying let him walk, but who else was offering him that sort of money is more my question. I don't know. I'm maybe the Knicks.
We ended up, that 4 for $60 we offered to Nurkic instead of Mitchell Robinson.
Mitchell Robinson's was the right move there instead of Nurkic.
No, it was, but that's probably what the Knicks were going for.
True. I do want to bring up something. I talked to Dev about it. I put it in the chat. There's a name I want to bring up that is gonna, just like Devon did earlier, going to make him very happy, to be honest.
Oh yeah, here we go. He was telling me he was hinting at this, that it was going to make my entire night, which I wasn't sure whether it was sarcasm or whether
it actually is going to be a good thing for you. I promise.
Okay.
The Lakers are finally off the Luol Deng contract.
I saw this.
You are finally free, my man. It's been 6 years, something crazy like that.
Yeah,
you're gone. It's done.
I saw something on Twitter about this specifically, and I also, right next to that post, I saw another post which said, "Never forget the time that the Lakers paid Timothy Mozgov $64 million." And I was right back to a bad mood because I remember those dog days. I remember those dog days of Timothy Mozgov getting paid that ridiculous amount of money.
That was 2017. That wasn't even that long ago.
Nope. It was just a few years ago.
No, that was that 2016 year where everyone got paid. Yeah, what was the Evan Turner $90 million?
Yeah,
that was like
Alex Crabbe got like $100 million. It was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. And I mean,
I haven't heard that name in a while. That's bad.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny that because Mitch Kupchak was the GM for the Lakers at the time, if I'm correct.
You're right.
Now he's over in Charlotte, and they're struggling to get any sort of big man over there.
Yeah, we're still waiting to hear.
He got cold feet. He signed Timothy Mozgov once, and he was like, "Not again. I'm never doing that again."
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And just to wrap up on a few points about Lillard as well, the latest report that I saw was Lillard has a 2-year, $100 million extension on the table ready for him to sign. And I guess the reason he's not signing is he wants to see what Portland's going to do in free agency before he signs a 2-year extension. He's still under contract for another 2 years before he sees a player option. And then another one's just about Isaiah, because I had to pull up because he mentioned his bold predictions of 2022. He got 2 of them right. He got Yusuf Nurkic. The only thing he got wrong was that they committed longer. His prediction was signing back with the Portland Trailblazers on a 2-year, $35 million deal, when in reality he signed for 4 years, $70 million. So just double what Isaiah put down, and he's literally right on the money with the money. So he has that. And then the other one as well that we touched on briefly before is Zach LaVine. He had down that Zach LaVine's going to sign a 5-year, $200 million deal with a player option, when in reality he signed a 5-year, $12.5 million max extension. So he knew that it was going to be a max extension. And I believe Zach LaVine's new deal also has a player option included in it in year 5 as well. So, I mean, Isaiah, you were right on the money with number 1 and number 2 on your thing. So that was impressive.
We did this a year earlier, by the way, but I think it was before
literally a year ago. So we didn't know anything at the time.
Another one is coming soon, by the way, a couple months. Give me like a month or 2. We're working on next year already. That's it.
Fellas, I know we just broke past an hour. I had one more down on my bullet points that I wanted to touch on briefly before I sort of leave it to you guys to if there's anything that we did miss. The Los Angeles Clippers are an interesting team because they, after John Wall was bought out by Houston, he decided to sign a 2-year, $13 million deal with the LA Clippers. We don't know if he's going to end up being in that starting lineup, if he comes off the bench, if he's 100% healthy. I believe he is, though. I believe he was just sitting out at that point with the Houston Rockets during the home stretch of the season. How do you guys feel about the LA Clippers now? Is this a serious contender in the West when it's really a dogfight with a lot of the teams in there?
We said Gary in particular said this a lot during his talk about Brogdon. If healthy, because it's a whole lot of question marks, but I really like John Wall where he's at now because you're a third option now. You don't have to really be bigger than what you could be at this point in your career with so many injuries. You just need to slot in there and be decent enough. And now his contract is about it's a great move for the Clippers. I think it's a low risk, high reward. But I would be remiss if I did not compare it to one signing it reminds me of as a Knicks fan. Kemba Walker last year. I was saying a lot of the same thing right now. So I'm hoping that he does well. I believe he will do well because it's not as much pressure. You're not in New York. You don't have to deal with that. The rats on the basement and stuff, slot in behind Kawhi, slot in behind Paul George. But God forbid either of those two get hurt. I don't know. I think this is could be a nothing move in my opinion. But if everybody's healthy, this is a nice little nucleus he got.
I agree. I will need to say every Instagram and Twitter user that makes those edits needs to chill. I'm calling this a big 3. Stop. Get help.
Calm down.
You have a problem. The Clippers are better with this move. John Wall, of course, is going to get them open shots like he always has. John Wall has gotten a number of dudes paid. Marcin Gortat has his entire career owed to John Wall. He should write him down in his will if we are being completely honest with ourselves. But no, seriously, if John Wall is even half of what he was in Washington all those years, this is a very, very positive for the Clippers. And the fact that you can pretty much put anybody with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard because of how lethal they are from the 3-point line, it makes it really easy to just put any sort of athletic guy around them because your 2 main stars are amazing 3-point shooters. Of course, you're going to also probably start Batum. They just re-signed 2 years, $22 million.
So Jax.
Right? Correct? 2 years, $22 million?
Yes.
Yes.
So 2 years, 22. 2 years, 22, I believe.
2 years, 22. Yeah. So, and then they got Zubac back. They did lose Hartenstein, which is a little sad. They got Amir Coffey. They're keeping their guys. They're letting the guys go that they can't afford to pay, but they're bringing up some dudes who, if healthy, like we always say, if healthy, John Wall and this Clippers team with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It seems weird to say their 2 names together when it doesn't have to talk about them both sitting on the bench. But watch out. This Clippers team might run the West.
Listen, Gary said if people are calling this a big three, John Wall, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, everyone needs to stop and get help. I'm just saying, maybe I should stop and get some help then.
This man is sick. This man is sick. Get him in the hospital.
Have to get some help because July 1st, 2022, I want it to be known right now, the Los Angeles Clippers are my way, way, way too early pick for the Western Conference. I'm just saying
Devon.
John Wall is only 1 year removed from averaging over 20 points with a disappointing Houston Rockets team, and he's only 2 years removed from his final year in Washington, where he was dishing out over 8 assists a game. If this is a team that stays healthy, I agree. If. And trust me, as a Lakers fan, I know the word if when I see it because I'm living the days of Anthony Davis. I'm living the days of the older LeBron James. Trust me, I know what the injury history is like now. I'm just saying Kawhi Leonard, when healthy, is the best defensive player in the game.
Top 5 in the league, easy.
One of the best two-way players, I would argue, in NBA history, I would say. And then Paul George, disappointing in the playoffs. But if you get a guy like John Wall and you get, these re-signings of Batum in there, and then all of a sudden your bench has Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Marcus Morris.
Oh, Norman Powell. I forgot about Norman Powell.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's their big three. Norman Powell.
That's their big – absolutely. Over – yes.
As a bench,
he's not playing on the bench.
Depth player. Norman Powell's playing off the bench. The starting fives, if John Wall is in that starting five, it's John Wall, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Batum, and Zubac. That's your starting five.
I would honestly, if I'm the Clippers, I'm pushing. Batum played a little bit at the 5 last year. Get as many shooters as you can in that lineup. Get Norman Powell in the starting lineup. That man's a 20-point-a-game scorer when he's healthy, when he's on the court. And they shut him down a little last year because they wanted to keep him healthy for this year. But Norman, I think you're underrating Norman Powell. You're gonna sit here. You're picking the Clippers to win the title, low key.
No. I said wait.
Okay. I'll take it back. You're not picking them to win the title. You're dark horse contender.
The same. I'm telling you, I get these. You guys ever watch Disney Channel growing up? See, That's So Raven.
You're having a vision.
I'm having a vision. Last year, I said the Chicago Bulls. I was driving that bus. This year, as a Lakers fan, I might just be at least hopping on the hype bus for the Los Angeles Clippers.
It's the same stadium. You just got to go from one side.
I think they're just as capable of making as much noise as the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls obviously fizzled because of injury history and the injuries they endured during the season. But if the Chicago Bulls were healthy last season, you're telling me they didn't have a chance at least to make the NBA Finals? I think it's the same thing right here. If the LA Clippers can avoid the same injuries that the Chicago Bulls could not avoid, I mean, the LA Clippers might just be that team in the Western Conference because what other team in the West, other than the Minnesota Timberwolves, has really gotten that much better? I mean, I saw the Warriors lost a couple of players, Gary Payton. They lost Anderson. They've lost a couple of other guys also in the mix. Yeah. I saw the Phoenix Suns probably not going to have DeAndre Ayton. I'm seeing the Lakers aren't able to move on from Westbrook instead of Westbrook. I don't care what he says. That's what I'm calling him until he proves me otherwise. And, I mean, you just look at down the list. I mean, I just don't see a team that got significantly better in the West other than the LA Clippers and the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Here's my thing with that. Here's my issue. Your take is fine, right? Like I can see them as a dark horse, but not because of John Wall. Okay, not because of John Wall.
Hey, listen.
Like it helps the case, but look, you were talking about him averaging 20 a game, and I looked up. I mentioned Kemba Walker, right? And I just wanted to see. I was curious. The year before Kemba Walker came to the Knicks, he was also averaging 19 a game. Of course, it was an injury-riddled season. The year prior to that, he was, averaging 20. But obviously injury-riddled season. So
John Wall,
you compared him to the – of course, no, look, John Wall's better than Kemba. But, like, when
Kemba didn't play over 60 games for 3 consecutive seasons, though.
And John Wall? John Wall has.
Yeah, John Wall's played 40 games in 3 years.
Like, come
I guess
on.
it's the same way.
The comparison to the Bulls is on point because just like the Bulls, that bus is gonna break down, in my opinion. But I guess if they are healthy, if they are healthy, then you got to give them thing. But like, it's not because of John Wall. I mean, he helps the case, but it's not like, oh, they got John Wall, they're Western Conference favorites. I just don't see it that way. Norman Powell, like I said, I think is a more important player to that team than John Wall, in my opinion. Well, as you need a point guard, but I'm talking from a skill perspective. I think Powell, I would have.
We also have to remember John Wall was forced to sit out the 2019 to 2020 season from his recovery from injury. Mm-hmm. But in that 2021 to 2022 season, John Wall wasn't hurt at all during that season. That's what we have to remember. He was not hurt.
Yeah, he's not hurt.
John Wall agreed that he was going to sit out for the whole entire season. He was shut down for the season mutually because they wanted to work on his future. So John Wall hasn't been injured for that's not why he sat out the last season. He could have played with the Houston Rockets, but then again, I don't even know if you could pay me to play for the Houston Rockets. I just don't know.
You could pay me easy. I'll take a minimum contract.
Nope, I would not.
No, I'll take a minimum. Give me that Andre Ingram deal. I'll take a minimum contract. Last game of the season, I'll put up like 10.
Yeah,
I got a decent 3 on me. I mean,
I can, I can shoot the rock, pass the ball.
So that's my way too early take. And before we shut down, did you guys have any other big moves or big news or things that you wanted to get off your chest? I know we've been running for almost over an hour now.
There's a couple of contracts I just wanted to point out that I think are good deals, important and like pretty decent signings for all of these teams. The one I wanted to mention first, of course, was Lou Dort staying with OKC for 5 years, $87 million. You got to pay someone. Oklahoma City's got to put their money somewhere, and locking up a guy for 5 years who plays great defense, averages 17 points a game, and shoot, I mean, you get a good, decent enough players around him, and he's a great role player. We saw him do great things as a rookie with CP3 and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Excited for that. Really, really liked that the Cleveland Cavaliers re-signed Ricky Rubio, 3 years, $18 million. That's a great signing for them. Get you some backup point guard play off the bench when Darius Garland isn't in. And Garland is a lot better of a shooter than Rubio, but in terms of the way that they play, pick and roll offense, finding open guys, it's a good transition that you can have from your point guard starter to your backup point guard. A couple other ones, Kyle Anderson to the Timberwolves, 2 years, $18 million. He's immediately going to go into that starting lineup, starting over Taurean Prince. Excited for what he can bring to a team with Karl Anthony Towns, who is a big who needs to be outside of the paint a little bit more. Kyle Anderson, a little bit more of a slashing, playmaking, post-ish player. Excited for that. And I think the last one I wanted to mention, I have it right here. I think very underrated too that I'll finish off on. Joe Ingles to the Bucks, 1 year, $6 million. They need to try something different. Get you a point forward on your bench. Get him to be able to pass the ball, someone else to give the ball to Giannis. And Dante DiVincenzo going to the Warriors.
I do.
He was a starter on a Bucks team that won the freaking NBA championship. He was their starting shooting guard on that team. And now the Warriors, who, they lost Gary Payton, they're getting another guy that they can slot right in there. And Dante DiVincenzo's a little bit better of a shooter than Gary Payton was. So that's interesting. I like those signings. If I had to say anything that I wanted, I already got it out. Don't worry.
Yeah. And one thing interesting too, I'm just looking. So the most recent report is the LAPD confirmed that Miles Bridges is being charged with felony domestic violence following his arrest on Wednesday. So he's going to be charged. We have no idea what that looks like. I'm looking at Sports Illustrated right now. Miles Bridges is the number 3 when it comes to available free agents right now. I mean, this was a player at one point in time. We're talking about well over $100 million on his upcoming deal. And now we don't know. And obviously we want to get all the information before we dissect that too much. Other remaining free agents,
Maybe
James
the Browns will pick him up. That was a
Yeah,
bad joke.
maybe.
All right.
Yeah,
Maybe the
maybe.
Cleveland Browns will come swoop in and get this man.
Yeah, and
Jesus.
remaining free agents that we're looking at, we believe that James Harden is going to renegotiate his deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. It's supposed to be happening over the weekend. I believe it's going to be a long-term deal if I had to guess. Then all of a sudden, DeAndre Ayton, restricted free agent. We talked about Bridges. Colin Sexton, last I heard, Dallas Mavericks are going to make a run at him. TJ Warren, unrestricted. Montrezl Harrell, unrestricted. Thomas Bryant can only accept a minimum deal from the Lakers. Apparently, the Lakers and the Celtics were the two most interested teams. If the Celtics sign him, I mean, that's even more depth to the Celtics than what they already have, and they don't really have a big man to play behind Robert Williams and Al Horford, so that would be a great mix, I think. Dennis Schroeder, after his season last season with Houston, is unrestricted. Cody Martin, Caleb Martin, and one player that I think is unfortunately going to sign with the Lakers after what I heard is Blake Griffin. I think is going to.
Wow.
I heard
wanna see
that
Blake
he
back
wants
in-
to
I
go.
wanna see
He wants
Blake
to go
back
to
for
the
the
Lakers.
Clippers.
Is the last thing I heard.
I want to
Yeah.
see him play for the Clippers again. Get that fake jersey retirement crap up on the stands again.
Goodness.
We'll give him all that.
I heard he wants to
steal
go
and
to
then
Los
trade him 6
Angeles, and I
months
can
later.
assume that means Lakers. I mean, he's not accepting a big deal. It's going to be a
Yeah.
veteran minimum deal, or I mean, he's not even worth a mid-level exception. I don't think for 6.
Ooh! One thing I wanted to say before we left, or before we moved too far away from when we were about to wrap up and stuff.
Yeah.
Dejante Murray is now an Atlanta Hawk.
Yes.
And that is very intriguing, especially for someone like Trae Young, who has his defensive issues, getting paired with the guy who is a great perimeter defender. I think I'm worried about how many people, like Trae Young has the ball every possession, and Dejante Murray is one of those dudes that's getting 29 and 9 every night. So that's an interesting combo. Let's see if Trae Young can play a little bit better off ball. He's a great shooter when he comes off screens. He just doesn't do it too much. That's a big move for the backcourts in the East. I know we mentioned the Gobert trade, but I think that's another big one we didn't bring up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's crazy too, because the Spurs and the state that the Spurs are, I actually thought it was not a good move for the Spurs, obviously, from the point of winning a championship, but I respect the Spurs and what they did, because apparently they told Murray that they didn't want to waste his younger years stuck in a rebuild, so that's why they decided to move him. They know they're not going to be competing during Murray's current contract, so that's why they ended up moving on from Murray. They basically said, listen, we're not competing over the next 3 or 4 years, and so we want to go ahead and deal you to, I mean, not a contender, I don't think, after the season they had last year, but certainly an upgrade going from the Spurs to the Hawks.
And the fact they didn't have to give up pretty much they also traded Kevin Herter today to the Kings, which was interesting, but doesn't really move the needle for me when it comes to the Hawks. Maybe some good depth pieces in the back there. But Dejante Murray, that definitely wasn't seen as the future in San Antonio, obviously. And now it's tank for Victor Wembanyama. It sounds like I'm saying Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z. That's how it feels when I say his name.
Hey,
probably terrible of me to say that, but it's the truth. My last name is Sunnyburger. Look, it's right there. Make fun of it.
Look out for
right
Johnson.
there.
Look out for Keldon Johnson. He's gonna go off next year.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's honestly, and
Yeah.
that's an interesting foil. Keldon Johnson. See, it's just absolutely solid all around. Doesn't excel at anything massively, but also isn't bad at anything either. So
I got him on my fantasy team too. He was like a throwaway.
Hey.
I'm excited.
One thing about or two things, I guess, really about the Hawks too. So first one was more of an observation more than anything that I saw on Twitter today. Aaron Holiday and Justin Holiday, brothers, obviously teamed back up, same uniform now for the first time since they both played for the Pacers back in the day. And then the other one is more of an open-ended question. I'm just confused about what's happening with John Collins. Like, John Collins is a really good player. Are they, like, now that you have Murray, like, I don't understand what's supposed to be up with his future, if he's staying with the Hawks or if he's viewed as somebody that has really good return value.
I don't think he's in their future plans. If I'm the Hawks, I don't know honestly why he's not. Yeah, it's sad that a guy who can shoot 40% from three, 6'8",
Mhm.
pretty athletic guy, can play solid defense, rebounds the ball pretty well, and for some reason the Hawks are just like, we're better off without him. I think there's some stuff we don't quite see behind the scenes in Atlanta that John Collins might have given them a second thoughts about. I think
Yeah.
he's a great player. When he's on the court, he absolutely shoots the heck out of the ball and plays pretty decent defense. He's not some sort of defensive stopper, but he's also not a negative on that end. I wonder what. I mean, I guess that's the speculation we all sit here as NBA fans and think about. I wonder what John Collins has done to warrant the just trade. He's in every trade rumor. If the Hawks are like, oh, we're trading somebody, the starting name is John Collins. They're not putting DeAndre Hunter in any of those trades. It's John Collins.
Yeah, and as we wrap up the show, I'll leave off on the latest report.
Yeah.
Bren Forbes signing with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We don't know the details yet, but just
Okay.
Bren Forbes added to Minnesota's bench. So
Noted
that piece.
guy who had more points than Jimmy Butler in the Bucks Heat series in 2021. I'm not forgetting it. Bren Forbes absolutely freaking killed us.
Yep.
Random scrub Heat killer. It's a thing.
Yeah, but we appreciate everybody staying on. We're getting close to 10 o'clock Eastern. We're going to wrap up the show here. That's 23 episodes down in the books, and we'll try to pop up an episode for next week for episode number 24. But yeah, that's all we got for you. Check out our content over at theathleteshub.org and make sure you're checking out all of our great podcasts here from Deep from Three and also Free Baseball with Isaiah, Davis, and Jake. So be sure to check those out.
Also, don't forget, look at that NBA free agency tracker Dev's been working on a lot.
Yes.
Theathleteshub.org.
Yeah.
My guy, you always
lot. That's one. It's a hub for you to keep updated.
Get us out of here. Get us out of here.
Shout out AJ. All right, we out of here. Peace out, guys.